Okay, so I've seen like something where it's like a recent development in the Linux community. It seems to have like really become a popular take, I don't know, about 6 months ago, with like the Linux experiments video on it where it's like Ubuntu is gone. Fedora is the new Ubuntu, which is a pretty dumb take. I mean, for multiple reasons. I mean, like, well, I will say most distros, quote unquote, just work after install, but you're not gonna call Arch or Gentoo a just works distro. I mean, unless you're being like facetious, but or like just joking, but yeah, you're not really gonna call that like a just works distro. People really do seem fixated on just works distros though. Like, oh, you gotta use Linux Mint, which I'm not gonna be like, oh, Linux Mint is bad, but yeah, people like do seem somewhat fixated on just works distros for beginners. I feel like you should give just works distros to some types of like beginners, but I mean, if there's somebody who's like really like tech savvy, kind of dumb word, but like tech savvy, they might want to go to like something maybe Arch based at first. I don't know, like what, Endeavor OS, which is, I mean, Endeavor OS seems okay, but we're not going to talk about that anyways. Yeah, Fedora. Fedora is different though, because you see a lot of people, like, I guess shilling it as of late. Most people, I guess, like, it seems a bit ago, were like, oh, Fedora's fine, I don't really care either way. But now everybody thinks, oh my goodness, Fedora wholesome chungus Reddit moment, we gotta use Fedora, guys. But no, it seems, it's like, just, why? It seems like the most mad distro possible, which I guess some people would like, because then you don't really have to worry about upkeep, but the thing with it, that sounds good at first, like, oh, no upkeep, but it is a just works distro, quote unquote, that has upkeep. Like, well, I mean, all of them have upkeep, but I remember I was in a Discord server, which is like, oh, proprietary, oh, bad. But I was in a Discord server, and there was somebody who was like, oh, I installed Fedora, and it was like, oh man, I already don't know where this is going, but I installed Fedora, and instantly, like, kernel panicked, and it was like, huh. I mean, for something like Ubuntu, or a replacement for Ubuntu, I would hope it wouldn't kernel panic on first boot, because I don't know, like, Gretchen on Facebook isn't going to be very happy if the Linux distro that their grandson told them to use instantly kernel panics. But yeah, I don't think they would be really happy about that. I mean, for all the bad things about like Ubuntu, where it's like, oh, snaps are so evil, which I'm gonna give a hot take, Flatpaks are worse. But for all the people who say, oh, Snap's bad, GNOME bad. I mean, first off, Fedora's using GNOME too, and it's like basically vanilla GNOME, which is even worse because I mean, at least Ubuntu somewhat makes an effort to make GNOME usable. But anyways, yeah, it just like doesn't seem that well like adequate for a beginner to use like Fedora. But I also don't know where the power user would use Fedora, because if you're a power user, you're gonna want to use, I don't know, something like Arch, Gentoo, Slackware, maybe, if you hate yourself, Void, I think that's like the big 4 or 5 that are like power user centric or something, or LFS, but that's like basically a meme. There's no package manager, you can't really like maintain it, but it's good for education. But yeah, it's like in this middle, I mean, like plateau of like midwits. I'm not, well, that sounds mean, but it's like in like a bell curve where it's like the middle. So you're not gonna have like a Linux quote unquote noob using Fedora because it's gonna break every other 5 minutes. But you're also not gonna have like like somebody who goes to Unix porn and is like, guys, I use Arch, by the way. They're not going to use Fedora. It's just like, there's like really no point for them to use it. It has GNOME, which everybody hates basically. And especially Arch users, I don't get why they hate Fedora so, or not Fedora, GNOME. GNOME is like, meh. Kinda hard to use, honestly. I don't get why every distro like ships it by default, but yeah. They're not gonna like it. A noob isn't gonna like it. So what is the target audience for this? I don't know. I mean, like, Linus Torvalds uses it, but I don't know why. I mean, he could do what he wants. He created the whole thing, but I don't get why. I mean, at that point, just use, like, Ubuntu or something. But, anyways, I'm not gonna just go on an Ubuntu crusade, because, oh my god, that's so good for beginners. It's not really, because, I mean, GNOME. Yeah, I'd say Linux Mint is probably better, but, yeah, Fedora. Use it maybe? I don't know. Probably not, because, oh, here's the thing. I use NVIDIA on my laptop that I'm basically recording this on right now. But I'm using NVIDIA on here, and, guess what? Apparently it ships with Wayland by default, so bad sign there. And, guess what happens if you try and install NVIDIA drivers? Nothing good. If you use anything other than AMD everything, I'd recommend not touching Fedora with like a 10-foot pole. But yeah, basically Fedora overshilled. It reminds me of OpenSUSE. It's super astroturfed. It's like MX Linux. Who is using MX Linux? But apparently it's the most popular Linux distribution, which is dumb, because I don't know a single person who uses MX Linux. But anyway, basically corporate like Linux distro that's overly shilled, breaks a lot, so it's not really all too stable. I mean, unless you're using AMD, which I can't comment on because I don't use AMD. But, I mean, basically just overshilled, like this weird corporate, like, it just feels too, I guess, sanitary. It doesn't actually feel like a distro. It feels like something some weird, like, company made. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like that's what it is. It's like a generic operating system in a like hacker quote unquote TV show where it's like, I hacked the mainframe with HTML. But yeah, it looks like generic, the most generic thing possible, breaks randomly, and yeah, that's about it. I don't get why people use it. I feel like if you're a noob, you should be using Ubuntu instead, or Kubuntu if you don't like GNOME. And yeah, other than that, I don't really get it. I mean, you can use it if you want. I'd recommend against it, but yeah, that's about it.